the Cutting Edge is honored to have with us today Wayne LaPierre, Executive Director of the National Rifle Association. And Wayne, you're here doing a book tour in Mission Viejo, California today. How's it going? How's this book tour going? And what's the name of your book?
Well, it's going great. I mean, the name of the book is Guns, Freedom, and Terrorism. And, you know, at a time like this, whenever you look at history where countries are under attack and people are concerned about their safety, but make you more secure if you're just willing to give up some of your freedoms. And I wanted to write a book that told the truth about what our freedom means to our country, about the fact that now more than ever, Americans need to embrace the Bill of Rights and our freedom.
Let me ask you this. We got your last book, which was called Guns, Crime, and Freedom, which is oddly very close to what you've just done. What's the difference? What do you cover in this book you didn't cover in the last one?
A lot of new issues. I mean, the fact is that the people that want to ban guns in this country have now changed all their material. They no longer say that they care about crime. What they say is that they're trying to scare the American public into believing that these terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah out of the Middle East are wandering around gun shows in Michigan looking for a shotgun or two. And it's ridiculous, but that's what they're trying to lead America into believing, so they can shut down firearms shows, they can ban firearms, they can restrict ownership. And pilots. I mean, I had many commercial pilots in here tonight saying thanks for fighting for our opportunity to have a firearm in the cockpit so we can try to save that plane.
Let's back up a little bit. You know, you've been with the NRA, what, how many years now, sir?
I've been with the NRA for about 21 years.
21 years. Now, no one knows about Wayne LaPierre. I mean, you're obviously the key spokesman for the National Rifle Association. Where did you come from? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. There's a lot of shooting around there, a lot of hunting. People own firearms. It's a freedom that Virginia's a great state. It's a right to carry state, and it's something I've always believed.
So how did you get involved with the NRA?
Well, I grew up around people with the NRA. You grow up in an area like that, you run into the NRA at a very early age, but I also worked in the state legislature. We worked with the NRA to pass a bill through the Virginia state legislature that said if a criminal used a firearm in a crime, they automatically went to prison for 5 years in jail. That's the type of thing that stops crime and leaves all the honest people alone, and that's what we ought to be doing.
For all those NRA members out there, 21 years ago, how many members were there in the NRA then?
Less than 1 million, can you believe it? And now we're 4 million and headed to 5 million. In fact, I hope to get us to 5 million by the 2004 election.
Now, obviously, you have a lot of people in the Congress that are not so helpful as far as gun laws are concerned. Now we've got the Patriot Act, which we've got a friendly Congress, we've got a friendly administration. But tell us how do we balance that between personal freedoms and the fact that we need our national safety?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe that you know, we shouldn't be pushed by this terrorist threat into giving up our freedoms. I mean, our freedoms are the essence of what the United States of America is about. Those freedoms we have in the Bill of Rights, whether it's speech, religion, right to be free in your house from search and seizure, right to own a gun, that's what separates us from every other country in the world. And I mean, we need to be vigilant.
One of the things that everyone will bring up are there some 5 states, key states, that are really have been problems for gun rights activists for a number of years. California, New Jersey, Maryland.
You've got the list.
There's several on the list, and each one of them is a poster boy for anti-gunning. What are you doing in those states to try to back down these onerous laws?
Well, you know, it's only been about a couple years since you had the Clinton administration basically trying to take the United States right where England and Australia are, where people have been banned from owning firearms, honest people. Crime's gone up by 50% since they enacted the ban with guns. Self-defense has been eliminated in those countries. Clinton, I remember when he wanted to make everyone call the federal government and take a federal test before you could own a firearm. And I've always said, well, you know, I wonder how many of us would have passed Janet Reno's federal test. I bet you Al Gore would have, probably Bill Clinton, but not the rest of us. So the point is, we've turned all that around. In Congress right now, we're on the verge of passing a bill that stops the frivolous lawsuits against the firearms industry. I believe that we're going to make sure that that Clinton gun ban from '94 will not be reenacted. I believe that...
Is that the assault weapon ban?
That's the so-called assault weapons ban. I believe that the Congress will take a look at that. They'll evaluate it on its merits, which there are none. It's done nothing to stop crime. It was based on total cosmetics, and I believe you'll see this Congress let it expire. I think that the bills where they wanted to shut down firearms shows and things like that are going to be defeated. This Congress is a much more modern Congress. It's a much more pro-Second Amendment Congress than the ones we had during the Clinton administration, and they understand these issues much better. And I know Dianne Feinstein and Charlie Schumer are going to try to filibuster the bill to stop the lawsuits against the gun industry, but I believe we'll break that filibuster.
Well, how many of these books are you going to sell here in this book tour, you think?
You know, I don't know, but I'll tell you, it gets around the filter of ABC, NBC, and CBS and goes straight to the American public with the truth. So, you know, and a lot of issues, whether it's pilots owning guns, whether it's the fact that they're trying to scare people with the terrorist threats, whether it's the fact that you had all this phony research coming out for the Centers of Disease Control and gun control is what they should have called it during the Clinton administration. I even talk about in the book Eleanor Roosevelt carried a firearm religiously when she was First Lady of the United States, and maybe she'd give Hillary Clinton a lesson on the Second Amendment when Hillary channels through to her.
We're in Iraq. We just took over Iraq, and everyone in Iraq gets to have a firearm in their home. What's the NRA's position about firearms in Iraq?
I think that we should end up like every country. When you get a government with a democracy where people have freedom and law and order, we need to make sure that citizens are able to own firearms to protect themselves. There are dictatorships all throughout the world run by tyrants where the first thing they've done is take away from the people the right to own a firearm to defend themselves, and that should sure never be the type of policy that the United States is exporting to any other country in the world.
I've got one question for you, Wayne, and it has to deal with McCain-Feingold. Can you tell our audience why you're not allowed to be on the air within that 60 days before an election? What happened to freedom of speech in this country?
You know, it's outrageous. I mean, the fact is the First Amendment said Congress shall make no law abridging free speech. The First Amendment doesn't say, except if you're thinking about criticizing a politician, or except if you're thinking about running an ad 60 days prior to an election. I mean, what the Congress has done is absolutely outrageous. Not since the Alien and Sedition Acts in this country in 1798 have we had a speech ban where if the American public or organizations try to put an ad on TV speaking about politicians, we can be thrown in federal prison for 5 years with a $25,000 fine. And if you remember the Alien Sedition Acts, what happened then is John Adams' Federalist Party was trying to shut down Thomas Jefferson's Republican Party, and they enacted a law making it a federal crime to criticize the government or criticize a congressman. And there was such an uproar among the American public that the John Adams Party was thrown out 2 years later, and Thomas Jefferson ended up pardoning everybody charged under that law.
One of the questions...
In fact, the first person charged under that law was Benjamin Franklin's grandson, who ran the Philadelphia Democrat-Republican newspaper. The NRA, and thank goodness for the NRA, we have brought that case before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will be hearing it this fall. And I believe with all my heart the Supreme Court will throw out the speech ban restrictions in the McCain-Feingold bill. If they don't, we've lost our First Amendment in the United States.
Who's the new president of the NRA?
You know, I'll tell you, I've had the great fortune in the 12 years I've been running the NRA to serve with some tremendous NRA presidents. People like General Joe Foss, the #1 Marine Corps ace in World War II. Charlton Heston, I mean, what do you say? Moses, actor, patriot, statesman, gunner on a B-25 in World War II, marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in Selma, Alabama. I mean, these people brought gifts on our country and gifts to the NRA, and now, in my 13th year, I'm serving with Kane Robinson. He's a former police chief of Des Moines, Iowa. He's a real activist. He understands this issue. So I'm confident that the NRA's in good hands. We're full of energy, we're full of vitality, we're full of 4 million members, and an American public that wants their freedom protected to own firearms under the Bill of Rights.
One last question, and it's the one that every NRA member in this country wants to know today. Michael Moore, tell us what the position of the NRA is on Michael Moore.
You know, Michael Moore took a big, fat lie and made it into a so-called documentary. It was just absolutely outrageous. He invented, by splicing together 6 years of Charlton Heston's work, to make it look like there was one speech that Charlton Heston gave after Columbine. It was a total lie. It was a tremendous disservice to somebody like Charlton Heston. And the Academy Award folks ought to be ashamed of themselves for giving that so-called documentary film an award. It's not a documentary. Documentary is supposed to be the truth. That work by Michael Moore was simply a lie. It was fabricated. It distorts the truth. And someone ought to call him to the carpet on it, and I'm going to try to do it.
One of the things on that Michael Moore film I should mention was quickly that he used 2 of the kids who happened to be victims of Columbine just as pawns in his game to approach the Kmart, was it, or Walmart? I can't remember which one it was. But to say that they shouldn't sell ammunition.
Oh, it was outrageous what he did. I mean, he's got the American public believing that Charlton Heston flew into Colorado right after the Columbine massacre and held up that firearm and said, "From my cold dead hands." The truth is, that never happened. Charlton Heston did that several years later in another speech. Michael Moore simply distorted the truth, and he's got naive audiences around the country believing stuff that never happened, and he ought to be ashamed of himself to start with.
Wayne LaPierre, we've taken far too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining us again on The Cutting Edge.
Thanks, I enjoyed it.
Wayne, you
Good
can't
to be with you.
photograph for me, please.
I'll be happy
I'll
to.
pay that man in the back.